So the entire world seems focused on public art and monuments right now. There are Confederate monuments, monuments of slaveholders, and other negative people or notorious people being torn down around the world. And so what is happening in New York City? We've had so much controversy about monuments over the last few years. Well, not much. The mayor hasn't revisited his decisions about the Christopher Columbus monuments or the Theodore Roosevelt monument at the American Natural History Museum. But there is one thing that he's focusing on, and that is the sculpture of Charging Bull. Mayor Bill de Blasio has a plan to move the Charging Bull sculpture to the New York Stock Exchange in opposition to both the artist who created the sculpture and most of the local residents and community Board 1. And so this coming Monday, there is going to be a hearing at the Public Design Commission, which has to approve the aesthetic value of moving Charging Bull from Bowling Green to the New York Stock Exchange. And for people who know, I am the director of the Washington Street Advocacy Group, which has done advocacy on historic preservation and monuments in Lower Manhattan. And I feel strongly about this issue, and I actually decided to write a paper or a report arguing that Charging Bull is superior at Bowling Green than at the New York Stock Exchange. And if you look at the links below, you can read this report. And I feel pretty strongly about this because this decision is really being made only because of the New York Stock Exchange interest in capturing this bull and in some of the local real estate developers. There's really no consideration to the success of the bull at that location. Now, the city is saying that the reason they're having to do this is because of fears of terrorism or traffic issues with crowds at the current location. But they haven't given any information about the possibilities to relocate the bull within Bowling Green or the potential to move it somewhere else in the city. They're only focused on moving into the stock exchange to appease these lobby groups. Now, the report that I've offered has two sections. First, it looks at the legal case for moving Charging Bull. And the city charter is actually quite clear that the Public Design Commission is only supposed to evaluate works that the city actually owns. Its responsibility is to evaluate public art that the city owns. Well, Charging Bull is actually an anomaly within the city's art collection in that it appears to be still owned by the artist. And there are a couple points that are detailed in the report that show this. So first, there was never actually a contract giving the city ownership of Charging Bull. The artist Arturo de Modica placed the bull in front of the stock exchange under the Christmas tree in December 1989, sort of as a gift to the country or to the city, showing that it had strength as the country faced recession after the stock market crash of 1987. It was taken away, but the artist ultimately made an agreement with the Parks Commissioner at the time, Henry Stern, to place it on a temporary basis in Bowling Green. But there was never a contract signed, so it has never actually been legalized by the city, which leads to the second point, was that it did not receive approval by the Public Design Commission in the first place, which is required of all permanent works of public art, which means that it hasn't actually been legalized as something that the city owns according to its own rules. One theory is that part of the reason that they are pushing it through the Design Commission is that they can then use that to legalize the artwork or somehow claim ownership. Third, the city websites and its official materials don't fully list Charging Bull as city property. Jonathan Kuhn, who's the director of the Arts and Antiquities Division at the Parks Department, actually says that the Charging Bull, along with some paintings by Keith Haring, are only 3 works that are technically listed on the permanent collection, but are not owned by the city and are not legally part of the collection because they never went through Design Commission approval. Fourth, the artist actually has to do repairs to the sculpture himself. Quite recently, last year, there was a man who attacked the bull with this imitation metal banjo. And the artist, Arturo Demodica, actually had to return to the city to coordinate the repair of the sculpture. And fifth, finally, because the city has acknowledged that the New York Stock Exchange itself is paying for the move of Charging Bull, this indicates that it is operating extra legally, not according to normal channels of an agreement between the Parks Department and DOT and the use of their budget, but it's being operated in this odd way that doesn't go through normal channels and doesn't appear to have any precedent. Beyond this question of ownership, there are many different reasons to oppose a Charging Bull being placed in the new location. And some of the strongest sentiment has come from local residents and Community Board 1, who point out that moving Charging Bull to this new location right by the curb on Broad Street would create large crowds, would interfere with the entrance of 20 Broad Street. Also, moving Charging Bull to Broad Street might actually increase the risk of a terrorist attack. At the community board hearing, the NYPD claimed that Charging Bull is a target because of its tie to the U.S. economy or its symbolic association with the American economy. But if it were moved to Broad Street, in front of the stock exchange, you would then have this supposed symbol of the stock exchange immediately in front of it. So terrorists who couldn't necessarily reach the stock exchange itself and get through all the security barriers could target the people around the bull with a backpack bomb or a pressure cooker bomb like used in the Boston attacks, and they could achieve a much more symbolically effective target in a vulnerable place. Right now at Bowling Green, it doesn't have, I think, the same symbolic import. Now, my report actually details a lot of different aesthetic advantages to having Charging Bull at Bowling Green. And this is something that the city needs to be very careful about messing with. Charging Bull is one of the most popular tourist attractions in the city. And when it comes to public art, it's really difficult to know what it is that makes a monument or sculpture effective. And a big part of it is location. And some of the variables that go into that are something that we can't always necessarily put into words. So we don't fully understand why Charging Bull is so successful. Some people might think, oh, it's just this naked association with the stock exchange, bull, bear. But I think that the location, the effectiveness of the location, which was decided by former Parks Commissioner Henry Stern, has a big part of it. And these aesthetic arguments for the superiority of Charging Bull at Bowling Green are detailed much more extensively in the report linked below. And I have images and fully articulated arguments to support these claims. I think the most important argument is that the shape of Bowling Green and the shape of Broadway give momentum to Charging Bull running up Broadway, which is this fundamentally historic street which ties the city together and symbolizes its strength. On this broad street, you kind of connect all of New York's history together, and you have a one-way direction. So you have all of these cars and flows of people moving against the bull, but yet it is able to sustain this momentum and force forward, almost symbolically saying that New Yorkers can overcome the slings and arrows of life. So the bull itself is composed of triangles. If you look at its feet, to its spine, and then its head, you have these triangles. Well, Bowling Green is also shaped like a triangle, and the shape of Broadway at that location is also a triangle. So these triangular symbols together make connections, and they propel the bull forward on its movement and its charge up Broadway. Charging Bull's location at Bowling Green also gives it a great amount of natural light because of the opening at the Customs House and at Bowling Green. So you have natural light, which makes it very effective for pictures. It's not stuck in the middle of all these skyscrapers like it would be on Broad Street. And it also has this natural backdrop at Bowling Green, which allows greenery to enter into its presentation, which is very effective for something that's an animal after all. Additionally, Charging Bull at Bowling Green has these beautiful cobblestones under the bull. And if you look at photographs of the bull, the cobblestones are part of its presentation and give it sort of more natural, traditional feeling that I think ties it to New York. The Department of Transportation's new proposal puts Charging Bull next to the Stock Exchange in front of the entrance of a residential building at 20 Broad Street. Now, in this new location, the bull doesn't seem to be the focus of attention. It's not in the center of the street. It's closer to the curb and to the entrance of the building. It's next to a security tent for the New York Stock Exchange. That's its immediate object behind it. And it doesn't seem to be going anywhere in particular. There's nothing significant south on Broad Street, and there's no focus to it. Some of the members of the community board said that the bull looks lost, like it doesn't know what it's doing in the maze of the old Manhattan district. Now, the lobby group that is pushing for Charging Bull to be moved, the Downtown Alliance, sees bringing symbols like Charging Bull to the Stock Exchange as bringing more identity to this district. Now, this district doesn't need identity. It's one of the most historic in the United States. It's next to Federal Hall, where George Washington was inaugurated as the first president. It doesn't need to have all this grab bag of financial district symbols. That said, the retail companies and the real estate investors who are converting office buildings to residential buildings in this area want identities or symbols, but I think that's a very shallow way to achieve identity. You need to create place and context organically and through serendipitous associations. People create place through culture. You can't just throw down an object and expect that to create a new identity. It might work in a limited way for an artificial, marketable identity, but it is shallow, and it's not something that sticks around or that people really care about. Instead, moving Charging Bull to the Stock Exchange might permanently change the meaning of Charging Bull. Rather than a symbol of strength with its aesthetic advantages, it might just become a very naked symbol of how Wall Street and wealthy interests can take what they want, steal what they want, and convert this symbol of America to a very naked and overt symbol of the financial industry and lose some of its strength. Tourists might still come there, but it won't have the meaning, the accumulated love that it has at Bowling Green. Now, some people are cynical about the aesthetics of Charging Bull. There are art experts who are sort of ambivalent about the city's maneuver here because they never really cared about the bull in the first place. But I take a different approach. I think, even though I am interested in art and I'm a historian, I think that we have to respect the fact that people love Charging Bull and they see it as a symbol of strength and of New York. We can't trifle with that. It has a meaning that we don't understand, we don't fully process, but it's important to people. And city officials and community advocates should do their best to preserve these symbols that are associated with Lower Manhattan. There's no need to be cavalier and reckless with something that is so successful. If Charging Bull does move to the Stock Exchange, it might permanently become a symbol of what powerful interests can do. And the artist ultimately may resist this. Now, if you are opposed to Charging Bull moving to the Stock Exchange on aesthetic grounds or on simple grounds of convenience, we need you to testify Monday morning, June 22nd, at the Design Commission. The meeting, which was scheduled for a week ago, was delayed because of technical difficulties with their live stream, so now it's going to be on Monday. There will be a Zoom call on Monday morning. The meeting is scheduled to start at 10 a.m., but Charging Bull, they estimate, will be debated at 11:30. But I would encourage people to get on the call at 11 a.m. Often the Design Commission will move around its schedule without notice and can sometimes suspend a testimony. So it's important that if you can, to try to get on the call at 11 a.m. There are many people in New York City, but also around the world, who've had positive experiences with Charging Bull and have positive memories of their visit to it. And if you'd like to preserve that for future generations, please get on this Zoom call on Monday morning, and we should be able to beat the city on this. Uh, the Design Commission has to defend aesthetics, and I don't think there's an aesthetic case, and the locals are very much against it. Mayor de Blasio is very weak on these monument issues right now. He's completely politicized public art, and I think the city will see this as an absurdity if there keeps being resistance to it. So if you love Charging Bull, or you admire Charging Bull, or just simply think that it works better where it is, please get on the call on Monday. And my report, as I said, gives much more detail about the case, the aesthetic case and the legal case for keeping Charging Bull at Bowling Green. So if you'd like to read more, please read the report that I sent to the Design Commission last week. Thank you.